At 19, I tested positive for celiac but faced endless delays waiting over a year for a diagnosis while my symptoms worsened, echoing my chronically ill mother's life. I'm terrified of becoming like her, I thought as I struggled with suicidal ideation, clinging to hope. What if it's too late? I am certain this will be lengthy. I am notorious for overwriting, so I will include a summary after each paragraph in bold. On my 19th birthday, the age of majority in my country, neither parent would take me when I was a minor. I made a doctor's appointment and requested to be tested for celiac disease. I remember the appointment vividly. My doctor was perplexed because I do not have severe stomach issues nor any family history of the condition, and I am not underweight. In fact, I am technically mildly overweight. According to peer-reviewed studies, many celiac patients are indeed overweight, but my doctor did not seem to consider that. I believed I had celiac disease, so when I became a legal adult, I made an appointment to get tested. I do not present with the typical cases of celiac disease. I suspected I might have celiac disease for several reasons. This is merely a symptom list. Feel free to skip this section if you are not interested in medical cases. I am a biology student after all. 1. I have experienced mild stomach problems, occasionally seriously painful. Since I was young, a coworker suggested I get tested for polycystic ovary syndrome, which she had, but that did not seem to apply. I feel fatigued all the time, even though I maintain a healthy diet, exercise regularly, and get plenty of fresh air. 2. I have also suffered from severe insomnia since early childhood, which I read in medical journals could be a symptom of celiac disease. 3. My mother has been ill for my entire life. She has multiple chronic and other serious conditions that have led to hospitalizations and has been on long-term disability since I was in elementary school. All of her various ailments could stem from untreated celiac disease and/or are common comorbidities. 4. Does my mother have celiac disease? I am unsure, but she cannot be tested because she has not consumed gluten for years as it makes her ill. Eating gluten for an adequate period to undergo testing would pose serious risks for her. This is another reason I theorized that we might both have celiac disease. Gluten is detrimental to her health. 5. Stress onset. My mother remembers starting to feel unwell after a stressful life event. As for me, I have faced a considerable amount of stress from a very young age. Our home life was not very stable. Several factors could have triggered my symptoms. 6. I have lost my hunger cues, similar to my mother, which is a symptom of celiac disease. Sometimes they are present and other times they disappear. For nearly an entire year, I could consume a large amount of food or very little on a given day without feeling any difference. I understand the importance of nutrition, so I strive to eat enough daily, even when my stomach hurts and I have absolutely no appetite. Anyway, he conducted the blood test and called me back with mild surprise I'm positive, but only slightly. My levels are not particularly elevated. I will need an endoscopy and a duodenal biopsy for confirmation. He will refer me to a specialist. That's fine, it is not exactly good news, but it is still news. I informed my parents beforehand that I had visited the doctor and was expecting this call. I added it to their calendars, but they forgot regardless. I took a couple of days to process the information before telling them. I was upset but relieved that I might finally understand what is wrong with me. I felt hopeful that if I obtained my diagnosis, I could avoid becoming sick like so many people on my mother's side of the family. Her side has a significant history of chronic illness. My test result was positive but not definitive, so I require further tests from another doctor. My parents frustrated me with their lack of concern. I am hopeful that by securing an early and accurate diagnosis, I can prevent a lifetime of illness. I was instructed to wait for the specialist to contact me via email. My mother has seen plenty of specialists, so I know the waiting period is lengthy. I waited 6 months and then researched the doctor myself and called his practice. He had never heard of me. He did not receive my referral. I called my doctor only to discover there had been an administrative error. They expressed their apologies and assured me that they would refer me for real this time. 6 months later, I received an appointment. It was a phone call with the specialist lasting less than 5 minutes, but by the end of it, I had a procedure date. It is still months away, but at least it is a date. I am almost there. Due to long waiting lists and an administrative error, I was forced to wait a year before scheduling the procedures I need. The day I can finally receive them is still months away. Throughout this entire time, I must continue eating gluten, even though I know it is harming me, making me fatigued, and preventing me from sleeping. It is also causing internal damage that I cannot see. This is the same thing likely responsible for my mother's lifelong problems, yet I must subject myself to it every single day. However, I am nearing the finish line. I can wait a little longer. It won't harm me, will it? When the new semester begins, my exam schedule is released, and I discover the date of one of my exams coincides with the date of my procedure. So I called to see if I could be placed on a cancellation list in case an appointment becomes available. Apparently, the receptionist interpreted this as a request to cancel my appointment, and by the time I received her voice message, it was too late. I no longer have an appointment and must reschedule. It is now in the fall. An unfortunate schedule and yet another administrative error have pushed my procedure even further back. Given how diagnostic tests work, I must continue consuming gluten the entire time I wait for them, which is essentially poisoning me daily and making me ill. Additionally, it is likely causing organ damage, and the longer it goes untreated, the more probable it becomes that I will develop other illnesses, similar to those my mother has faced. My appointment is set for the fall, but I will be turning 20 this summer. In a couple of months, it will officially be 2 years since I received my positive blood work, and I will still not know if I have the condition. I continue poisoning myself every day, and here I am, potentially becoming a little more like my mother with each passing moment. She was 21 when she first became ill enough to require hospitalization. I could choose to stop eating gluten and accept that I may never be diagnosed, but what if celiac disease is not the correct diagnosis? What if it is something else and I still become ill like my mother? By the time my procedure is completed, if it indeed occurs this time, it will have been over 2 years since my initial positive blood test. My mother began experiencing intermittent visits to hospitals when she was not much older than I am. I am terrified of becoming like her. People often claim I am quite fearless because I participate in activities like bungee jumping and wilderness exploration, but they do not realize that my greatest fear is becoming as sick as she is. When she was my age, she was an entirely different person, according to those who knew her well. A few years later, she fell ill. Now she lacks friends, avoids her family, and seldom leaves the house. She had to leave her job in her 30s because she could no longer physically manage it. She was a banker, while I aspire to be a surgeon. If I am like her, I will barely be able to work before I must stop. I would likely need to quit even earlier due to the demanding nature of my profession, both physically and mentally. Who knows if I would even finish school? She was neither athletic nor adventurous like I am, rather, she was an artist and a homebody. Although she still enjoys painting, which makes me happy for her, I love running, bouldering, hiking, and camping, and she cannot participate in any of those activities. She does not mind because she never enjoyed them even before her illness, but I would find it devastating not to do them. I am genuinely afraid of becoming sick like my mother. If I fell ill like her, I would likely lose my ability to partake in my hobbies. She lost her career, her friends, and her capacity to carry out virtually anything, and I would too. She experiences headaches from reading for extended periods. She spends most of her days in bed. If she manages to take a shower, it drains her energy for the rest of the day. Her illness has undoubtedly impacted her troubled marriage, which had been a stay-together for the kids situation since I was in preschool and finally ended in the summer when I turned 18. Her condition has undeniably affected my childhood. I had to mature too quickly, essentially raising my younger brother whose first word was my name. I do not hate her, I recognize that it is not her fault. She has done her best throughout my life, but due to her illness, her best has not been sufficient. I acknowledge that this sounds harsh, and I do not blame her for any of it, but it is the reality. Both my brother and I have emerged a little troubled. He is currently failing out of high school, and while I help him, I also have my own studies to manage, and neither parent is taking action. When I pleaded with her to intervene, she claimed she could not because she is too exhausted. You know what? She truly is too tired. Being ill is challenging. My mother's illness severely affected her marriage, which was already miserable before it ended, though that is not the sole reason. It also contributed to her being a less adequate parent. Although I do not harbor anger towards her and I do not blame her for being ill, I had a subpar childhood as a result. My parents are not award-winning caregivers, but I do not despise them. They are both navigating difficult situations, and I believe they are trying their best. Living with a chronic illness is incredibly challenging, but it is also difficult to be married to someone who is unwell. While it is not entirely her fault, it is also not entirely his fault, and there is truly no one to blame except the illness itself. If I find myself ill like her and each day I feel one step closer, I will lose my career in a field which I genuinely adore, by the way, and I do not think I would ever consider marriage out of fear of ruining it, and I would refrain from having children for fear of doing the same to them. I would be unable to engage in my hobbies, and I believe I would contemplate suicide. I fear that I would forfeit many important aspects of my future if I fell ill. So much of my life could be lost, and I doubt I would be able to cope with that, which leads me to contemplate suicide. Thus, yesterday, while lying on my bed staring at the ceiling and struggling to fall asleep for the millionth time, I thought about taking my own life, likely for the 10th time in my life. This time, however, I moved to the kitchen cabinet and removed a combination of medications that I knew could end my life. I placed them on the counter and stared at them while fetching a glass of water. I contemplated what I might write in my suicide note, perhaps this very sentiment. I was even aware of which medications I could take that would not be fatal but would make me so ill that I would end up in the hospital, and possibly they would conduct the necessary tests and identify my condition. Maybe I would not have to wait until the fall or even longer. considering there could be another administrative error. Yesterday, while ruminating on all of this, I contemplated suicide, not the first instance, and actually got up to line up pills that could have killed me, definitely the first occasion. My mother has numerous medications that could be lethal in the right dosage. But I did not take them. I do not want to die. Honestly, I do not want to die. I love school. I have always excelled academically and I find biology fascinating. I consistently achieve the dean's list every semester and my friends often roll their eyes at me because I occasionally get overly excited for lectures and studying. I genuinely enjoy what I do. I am somewhat of a prodigy, having assisted in surgeries before, which has consistently been an incredible experience. My friends are amazing and incredibly enjoyable company. My hobbies bring me immense happiness and excitement. I have secured an internship this summer, which is highly esteemed and competitive, and I am genuinely thrilled about it. I enjoy reading and possess a vast collection of books, and I am a self-proclaimed nerd who frequently discusses literature. I have a dog whom I adore, and nobody else seems to care for her as I do, so she would be heartbroken and lonely without me. I am not depressed, I do not feel numb or emotionless. I am genuinely happy and excited most of the time. I understand that taking my life would benefit no one. I do not want to die, I simply want to live. Yet I feel as though I am gradually killing myself every day and I keep urging myself to hold on for just a little longer, even as that longer stretches out. I fear that the day when I finally seek testing will arrive, only to find out it is too late, and not only do I have celiac disease but I also already have arthritis or hepatitis or cancer. I came very close to ending my life but ultimately I did not. The experience frightened me significantly. I genuinely do not wish to die. There are so many aspects of my life that bring me joy, yet I feel that this terrible situation is silently killing me, and I am terrified of losing the things I love most. I keep telling myself to endure a little longer, but I am uncertain how much longer I can hold on, and I fear that when the time comes for testing, it will be too late, leaving me with nothing to hold on to anymore. I will not take my own life. I will not commit suicide. I do not want to do it. I cannot. I have so much to live for. But goodness, if this situation does not end up killing me one way or another. I truly do not believe I will take my own life. I am hanging on despite feeling hopeless and overwhelmed. Even if no one ever reads this, it has been cathartic to write. I feel slightly better about my circumstances. Story 2. Struggling silently at 25, I told my mom I felt depressed and she asked, should you get off hormones? Each time I thought about ending it, someone else's crisis pulled me back. Is my happiness worth more than their pain? I'm running out of time and choices. Throwaway account for clear reasons. I, a 25-year-old individual, have been seriously contemplating suicide for the past 6 months, and no one close to me is aware of my struggles. I have a history of minor self-harm and suicidal ideation that a few of them know about, but it was almost always just passive desires that I did not act on frequently, and I have not felt this way in a long time, nor with this intensity. The most recent flare-up of these feelings began about 3 months after I started hormone replacement therapy. Anyone who is transgender and has undergone hormone replacement therapy understands how unenjoyable puberty can be on the second time around. But in my case, it has been overwhelmingly positive for my self-image. I used to have difficulty looking at myself in the mirror or in photographs because it gave me a visceral sense of disgust. However, now I can actually see myself when I do. I cannot ever return to the way I felt before, even the thought of it is painful. The issue, however, is that I find it challenging to express emotions now, and whenever I attempt to discuss my feelings with my family, they are either oddly dismissive or too absorbed in their own issues to respond adequately. I am almost completely unable to cry anymore, and when I do, it requires such an unbearable amount of stress that by the time the tears flow, my entire body hurts to the point where I need painkillers to alleviate it. I also encounter an intense mental block when trying to discuss my feelings with others. Everything seems either not significant enough to warrant a conversation or bad enough that the emotional labor feels daunting, leading me to prefer keeping it to myself. This creates a tar pit effect with my feelings, where I feel terrible and helpless to change it. I understood that I would have to relearn certain aspects of how my brain functions, but it feels so overwhelming and isolating. About 2 months into hormone replacement therapy, I tried to open up to my mother about feeling a bit depressed lately due to the difficulty of navigating my emotions. Before suggesting anything else, she asked if I should stop taking hormones. When I replied no, she required me to explain myself, and I had to describe how it took me 7 years to even begin this journey, as my dad had previously convinced me not to pursue it. And before starting hormone replacement therapy, I constantly felt like my own reflection was an eldritch nightmare, crying myself to sleep regularly and wishing to be dead. Therefore, no, I was not going back simply because I felt a little sad sometimes. She then continued by essentially listing a series of insensitive comments about how I am not exercising enough or need to improve my diet, neither of which are things she would know since she does not live with me, and suggested that I should get a job to feel more useful. I am disabled and have been attempting to find a job for months, among other things. It honestly baffles me because she has never acted this cruel or dismissed my feelings before, and she did not once suggest that I speak to a therapist as she usually would. She has never been overtly transphobic, but it seems as if she simply does not want to deal with me anymore since I began hormone replacement therapy. I have not been communicating much with her over the past few months because each conversation since then has typically ended similarly. My relationship with my then husband deteriorated because I suddenly found myself not attracted to men at all, which I resent myself for because he is the perfect man and loved me despite my changes. I stopped talking to my dad years ago, and my biological sister has been experiencing a messy divorce and also ceased communication with our mother for her own reasons, so I do not want to burden her with my issues. Almost all of my friends have either suddenly drifted away from me, or I have discovered that I lack the energy literally or emotionally to support the people I still have contact with as I used to. The only person I feel I could confide in is my girlfriend. I am polyamorous. My husband is aware of and supports my relationship with her, but she has her own struggles, so there is a 50-50 chance that I feel supported or not. The people in my life have always been most important to me, so all this turmoil in my relationships has made me feel very disconnected from the world. In November of 2024, I came to a devastating realization that I have been unable to shake. I cannot go off testosterone because I would not be able to live with myself if I did. I refuse to spend the rest of my life suffering that way. But if I remain on testosterone to be happy for myself, I am suddenly either hated by or not a good enough child, partner, sibling, or friend to anyone I care about anymore. I do not believe I can be happy. This is when my thoughts and behaviors shifted from breakdowns, impulsive decisions, and cries for help to actual plans. There have been multiple moments in the past 6 months when I took tangible steps toward something. I am not entirely sure what that is yet, but I have been researching options. However, each time I have tried, something unfortunate happening to those around me has stopped me, and the timing seems almost uncanny. I will refrain from being overly political about this as I understand the forum rules, but the first night I considered it was prior to the United States elections. I had been looking up painless methods at the time, but when the election results were announced, I knew my mother would be devastated and would not be able to cope with the thought of losing her child right after that night. So I retracted my plan and forced myself to engage in conversation with her to support her, no matter how exhausting each conversation is for me. The second time, I had counted out how many over-the-counter pills it would take and placed them in a bag when my girlfriend found me in the apartment and informed me that she was experiencing a low mental point. She entered as I was closing the bag and I had to hide it quickly. The most recent time, I was drafting a note outlining how to access and delete all my accounts online and calculating how much cremation would cost when my only offline friend, our roommate, mentioned they lost their dream job to automation and that we needed to reorganize finances in the house. Each time I make concrete progress toward ending my life, something disrupts one of the few people I have left, reminding me that I cannot do it to them, so I postpone my plans and keep my feelings to myself. I do not know if the world is simply too chaotic to allow me to die or if some greater force is attempting to convey a message, but I have had my own demise rescheduled so many times as a result of other people's misfortunes that it feels increasingly eerie. When I experienced these feelings in the past, I would typically inform someone within a day or two that I had thoughts of self-harm because it frightened me. But now I do not feel that urgency anymore, and I am uncertain if that is worse. I do not know how anyone would react if they discovered that I had been concealing this for months and that my situation has escalated so drastically. I particularly question how anyone would feel about the fact that their struggles are the only reason I am still alive. Each time something happens to delay my plans, I feel a mixture of exhaustion for continuously postponing my intentions and relief that I have an explanation to wait. Both emotions make me feel like a terrible person. I know my passing will cause pain regardless, but I want to ensure that my family, both biological and chosen, are in a good emotional and financial place before I leave, and I simply cannot find the right moment. A part of me fears that I never will, and I will continue to let this empty feeling eat away at me from the inside for the rest of my life, while another part worries that my luck has just been temporary and that it will run out eventually. I truly do not want to cause pain to those I care about. I know how devastating it is to lose someone to suicide, yet I feel I have no other option. Perhaps it would be better for them to mourn my loss and move on than to endure all my shortcomings. I finally feel good about myself for the first time in my life, but what is the point if either no one loves me anymore, or I am simply not worthy of loving them? I am unsure what I hope to achieve by sharing this. It is the first time I have written these feelings down, let alone expressed them verbally. I cannot afford a therapist, but writing has always served as my outlet when words have failed me. I hoped that writing everything out would lead to a breakthrough and make the solution clearer or allow the awful feeling to dissipate, but that has not happened. Perhaps I just want someone to know, even if they are a stranger, so it does not feel like I am deceiving the entire world. I will not abandon my family. I am not one of the contributors to the household income, so I recognize that it is merely a matter of time before they can manage the bills again. And I have been gradually teaching each of them the chores I perform so they will know how to manage without me. At some point, the stalemate between my desire for this struggle to end and my fear of actually taking action will break. I am not yet certain which outcome terrifies me more. Story 3. My sister faked cancer, gullible friends fundraised 25K, and I discovered I was dead in her lies. She has 4 months to live, and I'm losing my mind, echoed as she spiraled. Now she's broke and still lying. How do I save her from herself? This is a story that I need to express. It features my small family and primarily focuses on my sister, who will be referred to as Hannah. Thank you for reading this in advance. I realize it is lengthy. Let us begin by rewinding to the first week of September 2021. I'm a mostly responsible adult, living and working 1.5 hours from my family and hometown. 3 days before my 30th birthday, my mother, aged 50, calls to share some significant news. The unusual lump on her neck, which had appeared a few weeks earlier, has been confirmed as cancerous, and her abdomen is filled with tumors. My mother starts chemotherapy treatment for stage 3 non-Hodgkin's Burkitt lymphoma. Hannah, aged 25, lives closer to our childhood home with her roommate Mary and Mary's 8-year-old son. It is a short drive for Hannah to visit our mother, so we maintain contact through text messages and phone calls, ensuring everyone is supported over the following months. Eventually, the time arrives when our mother begins to feel ill from the treatment and starts losing her hair. Hannah arrives at the hospital within days, proudly sporting a freshly shaved head in solidarity. Fast forward 1 year to September 2022, where my mother, grandmother Hannah, and I gather for my 31st birthday lunch. We are immensely grateful that our mother is still with us. Hannah stands at the table and shares exciting news: she is pregnant and expecting twins. We are all taken aback but thrilled for Hannah and our mother, especially since we want her to be present for her first grandchildren. Hannah and I continue to stay in touch, although she has always been somewhat elusive on social media, keeping her profile and posts private from family. As a result, we converse casually over the phone or through text messages. This behavior had raised questions for our mother in the past, but she never voiced any issues or complaints. By December of that same year, Hannah informs me on Christmas Day that she has faced medical complications and is no longer pregnant. She had not mentioned this earlier, so I was taken aback and saddened for her, wondering why she had not confided in me, thinking perhaps I was not someone she could trust. And recognizing that Hannah has many friends, she likely sought their support instead. Moving forward 1 year to September 2023, I am about to turn 32 and am catching up with my mother, grandmother, and Hannah again for my birthday lunch. We are enjoying a meal at our grandmother's house when Hannah suddenly begins to cry. As she wipes away her tears among our embraces, she reveals that the medical complications from the previous year have returned, and she is now battling breast cancer. She apologizes for sharing this news on my birthday and spends the rest of the afternoon exchanging amusing family stories with us and basking in the sunshine. We all want her to feel supported. Hannah updates us on her treatment plan and shows us medical scans and pictures of her arms connected to hospital devices. Hannah is my half-sibling and has several other brothers and sisters from her father's side, some of whom she met throughout the year and shared her cancer journey with. They even hired a photographer, stylist, and makeup artist to dress them up and take beautiful photographs at their farm, celebrating Hannah's life and creating wonderful memories together. In November of that same year, I receive a frantic call from Hannah late one Friday evening. She is asking for help and needs me to pick her up. She is in the hospital, approximately 45 minutes away from me. I quickly pack my bag, jump in the car, and go to get her. Upon my arrival at the hospital, Hannah seems a bit strange and giddy. A staff member directs me to the mental health unit so I can understand her mental health care plan and assist in her discharge. At this point, I am quite confused, but I take note of the forms and help her into the car. Hannah requests that I do not drive her to Mary's house as she left her car at work. She prefers to retrieve it and drive herself home. When we reach her car, it is well past midnight and Hannah stumbles out onto the road. I believe it is unwise for her to drive, so I offer to take her home after she gathers her personal items. She laughs, saying that she can see people watching her from the darkness, and before I can intervene, Hannah jumps into her car and speeds off towards home. A few weeks later, after numerous unanswered calls to Hannah's phone, it is Christmas Eve and I am preparing the last presents for a family gathering. Suddenly, I receive a call from Hannah. She is in a mental health facility about an hour's drive away from me, begging me to come and get her so she can spend Christmas Day with our family. I arrange for her discharge on December 25th, and go to pick her up around 7 a.m. I bring spare clothes, toiletries, and breakfast. During the drive to our family, now a 2.5-hour journey, Hannah confides that she has been struggling to cope with her breast cancer treatments and is facing challenges at home and work. I feel profound sympathy for her and express my desire to help. Hannah suggests that the best solution would be for her to move into my rental house with my partner and me because Mary is bullying her and demanding additional rent money. Gently, I respond that this is a matter we need to discuss with my partner to ensure we are all in agreement. Hannah acquiesces. On Christmas Day, amidst our small family and extended cousins, my mother pulls me aside and reveals that she has something important to discuss regarding Hannah. She appears worried and shows me a series of messages that Mary sent her. Hannah has been neglecting her share of rent and utility payments, and Mary received at least 3 texts from her son's school in recent weeks, indicating that Hannah picked up her son early. Mary often asked Hannah to collect her son in the afternoon but never to take him out of school, which raised concern. Embedded in the message history are screenshots from Hannah's social media profiles where she speaks about her lymphoma cancer journey. Wait a moment, Hannah told us she has breast cancer while our mother has lymphoma. There are photos of allegedly forged and misspelled medical documents for Hannah's diagnosis, with a prognosis of 4 months to live, as well as images of her in a hospital chair, bald, discussing her treatment. These pictures were taken back when Hannah shaved her head. We believed she did so to support our mother. It continued to worsen. We looked through photos of Hannah's Facebook posts where she claimed to have had multiple failed pregnancies over several years, losing her husband to an illness and being mistreated and estranged from her mother. Allegedly, I was dead. She posted that I died in a car accident, along with images of a random car crash, license plates blurred out, and my face. My heart felt as if it was both racing and sinking at this moment. Eventually, our mother had a phone conversation with Mary and learned that Hannah had informed her friends and coworkers that she only had months to live. In response, they banded together and raised over $25,000 to help Hannah acquire a reliable vehicle and live comfortably for as long as she could. Meanwhile, Hannah was still driving an old 4-wheel drive, the same vehicle I had dropped her off in just 1 month earlier. Fast forward to mid-2023, after discovering that Hannah had been living out of her car for several months and was abusing prescription pills and illicit drugs at the time of her admission to the mental health facility. Hannah's secrets did not remain hidden for long, as someone at the school where she worked uncovered her deception, leading to her being taken to court on fraud charges. Now it is 2025. She is entirely broke and is still repaying the money she squandered, never revealing where any of it went. Hannah currently resides with our grandmother, who does not allow much to go unchecked. To this day, Hannah has not uttered a word about the reasons behind her lies, and unfortunately, the deceit persists. While attending the funeral of a close family friend, I caught Hannah texting someone, claiming that she was being followed by a man intent on harming her for an unspecified reason. This is not true, as I discussed with her and our grandmother afterward. Hannah has also informed my partner and me that she is pregnant again, only to lose the baby early and neglect to inform us unless I check in on her. Fortunately, our mother is still with us and is seeking mental health support to adjust to her post-treatment life and return to a new normal. Hannah is also talking to a psychologist, but has become increasingly volatile and angry whenever she speaks with our mother. She dismisses any notion of assisting our mother with an eye roll and an outstretched hand, waiting for money. These thoughts weigh heavily on my mind. How can I support my sister through her destructive actions and ongoing behavior? Why is there tension between her and our mother? Is it because Hannah fears something bad happening to our mother, causing her to shut down emotionally? Should I continue to support someone who has deceived everyone about my death? Why do individuals resort to such lies? What is there to gain other than attention, and is seeking more attention a negative trait? Thank you for allowing me to express this and release it from my mind. Story 4. Growing up feeling like a ghost in my own family, my dad's silent treatment left scars deeper than the words he spat at me. How useless. I've carried expectations for years while they've spoiled my sister and forgotten me. Will I ever break free from this loneliness? Where do I even begin? Honestly, I do not have the best relationship with my father or anyone at all, to be truthful, and I will explain why. It all started when my younger sister, E, was born. All of my parents' attention immediately shifted to the newborn. Consequently, I felt jealous, as if they no longer cared about me. My relatives do not care about me either. Each year, we visit our relative's house to celebrate her birthday. Even when I am sick and feeling nauseous, I am forced to go. I do not recall celebrating any of my birthdays at their house, which is fine because I do not really care about birthdays that much, but still. When it is my birthday, they do not even remember it and tell me to remind them when it is my birthday. It feels frustrating. They get upset when I do not get them anything for their birthdays, questioning why I would remember yours when you do not even remember mine. Returning to relatives, One day I was feeling extremely unwell and wanting to throw up, so I sat quietly and they mistook me for another random person. Whenever E talks or interacts with them, they pay attention. However, when I try to get closer to them, they completely ignore me. I feel like a ghost. Anyway, returning to the topic, I would say my relationship with my father is the worst. He works overseas most of the time, but I do not miss him at all. I feel no attachment to him. When we do video calls, E and I ask the exact same questions, such as what he ate that day and what he did, yet he responds differently. When I ask, he just says, yeah, yeah, but when E asks, he responds in a cheerful, high tone. I am not speaking to him in a disinterested tone. I am just using a normal voice, yet the difference is stark. It feels unfair. Additionally, whenever E yells or cries, everyone points their fingers at me immediately, even if I am not present. They still punish me even if I have not done anything to her. One of the most hurtful things my father has done is give me the silent treatment for an entire week. I was a teenager at the time and going through many changes, and it was incredibly damaging. He instructed everyone in my family to ignore me and not to respond to anything I said. This severely impacted me, especially since I was dealing with mental changes. As a result, I developed severe social anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts because of it. Moreover, being an older sibling is incredibly frustrating because whenever my siblings do something wrong, it is automatically assumed to be my fault, even if it is something foolish that they obviously did and I could not prevent. I also remember my father being overly touchy with me when I was 12 or 13. I immediately informed my mother, but I do not believe she took any action. I also dislike the fact that my father smokes a significant amount of cigarettes daily and drinks alcohol every day as well. It turns out he becomes very violent when he is drunk. There was one time he worried my mother by not returning home until 2 a.m. I despise him for causing mental harm to my mother and contributing to her stress, which has also led to my insomnia. He constantly yells all night using extremely hurtful slurs directed at me. How can I possibly sleep when he is yelling? I attempt to ignore it, but sometimes it affects me deeply. Furthermore, my father claims that he can read palms. I do not fully understand it, but he seems to believe he can see my future. It seems like he cannot bear having his ego damaged. He is also quite dependent on his mother. He will do anything she asks immediately, even if her requests are trivial. My paternal grandparents treated my mother horribly even before they started dating. I am baffled as to why my mother chose to marry him. My mother also confided in me that my father hid the fact that he smoked and only revealed it after a year or two in their relationship. She said she regretted not heeding her mother's advice to stay away from him. I genuinely feel sorry for her, given that she has endured emotional abuse for more than 2 decades at this point. There was an incident when he picked me up from school and we were taking the bus home. I stood up to ring the bell and prepared to get off. However, I noticed he was not standing. Instead, he remained seated. I was a bit confused but went along with it. After we got off, he swore at me using extremely hurtful slurs and even spat on the ground in front of me while saying, "How useless." He yelled that he was sick and wanted to ride for a bit longer until we reached home. In my defense, I got off at the regular stop because that was where I always got off. Moreover, how was I supposed to know he was unwell? He did not act strangely or say anything the entire way. I'm not a psychic or a telepath. I wish I were, but I am not. Tonight, my mother instructed me to video call him and talk to him since it has been a while. She said, "If you do not forgive him, karma will get you." I started trembling. How am I supposed to simply forget every horrible thing he has done to me and pretend to have a normal relationship with my father? Trust me, I want that too, but how? How can I possibly forgive him? I genuinely do not think our relationship can ever be repaired. He has not apologized or shown any remorse for the physical and emotional abuse he has inflicted over the years. How can I ever forgive him? Please offer me some suggestions. She mentioned, "You should cherish us before we are gone. You cannot regret later." That is true, but I do not think I will miss my father at all. I might miss my mother from time to time. Family members are supposed to stick together. While that is true, I do not even feel like I belong in my own family. He is not your stepfather. He is your own dad. Sometimes I wonder if I am adopted or something. My parents have consistently favored E over me. When she receives an award, they spoil her completely. But when I achieve a 1600 on my SAT and earn straight A's, they merely respond with, "Yeah, yeah, we expect no less from you." I feel as if I am carrying a heavy burden. There are so many expectations from various people. I do not want to disappoint them, but do I even care anymore? It has made me realize that I truly have no one on my side. I just want one person, just one, who will trust me, love me, care for me, and give me a reason to live. I often wonder what terrible things I must have done in past lives to experience such a lonely existence. I am an introvert, so I do not handle large crowds well, but still, I desire some people to care for me and treat me like a human being. I genuinely feel alone. I sometimes question whether anyone would care if I chose to end my life. I do not believe anyone would. I have been having suicidal thoughts since I was 12, and I am about to turn 17. I feel invisible in my friend groups as well. None of my friends really care about me. I feel like a ghost, not a human being. Is this life truly worth living anymore? Honestly, I do not have much strength left to keep fighting for myself. Suicidal thoughts are consuming my mind day and night these days. I am slowly losing hope. I have been going to bridges frequently recently, contemplating, what if I just jump? I too have dreams and ambitions like everyone else, but I can no longer hold on. I constantly feel like I am drowning.